Hey everybody, welcome back to Retrogaming Esoteric on a continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and I have a fun and extra video for you guys this Sunday evening because Robert or FPGAZumSpass has updated the Nintendo 64 core again, and it's got some awesome new features, and I know a lot of you wanted to see me test some particular games, so that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. Just don't get used to the extra Sunday evening videos. I don't want to make it a habit. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But last time I showed you Super Mario 64, you will see all the textures are not correct as the perspective is concerned. Now taking a look, all of the textures are exactly where they should be. Perspective correctness is here in the core, so you're going to be seeing a lot more games looking a lot closer to what they should. And now Toad basically has his face, he's no longer a horror show. But let's take a look at some other games that are just working and you can play today, even if they don't look exactly as you would expect. NFL Blitz here, you can 100% play. You're not going to be able to see the plays that you actually pick in-game, but you complete an entire game of NFL Blitz on the current Nintendo 64 core as of the making of this video. Now don't forget, as Robert updates the core, some games that work might break, some games that didn't used to work might start working. That is how these developments work. But everything looks great here as far as what you can actually see. The models are there, they're built out of polygons, the field has all of that perspective correctness to it, and you can just play the game. NFL Blitz is such an absolute classic game, and I can't wait to see this get improved on the Nintendo 64 core, especially with multiplayer support added in. It's going to be so fun, but just seeing this render right now, it is messy, but of course it is still a work in progress on the RDP chip. But the fact that you can run around, you can do plays, you can make passes, and you can end up getting tackled, it's just so fun to see. And of course it's a midway game as well, so there's got to be a little bit of cheese in it. But you'll see here, as the camera pans up, that looks relatively good as far as the current core status is concerned. And you get absolutely ridiculous 3D renders of butts in-game as well. It's not a midway game if they don't include something like that. But this went from not playable whatsoever, freezing before you would even see anything on the screen, to being able to play an entire game of football. And big thanks to Andy D for helping me with some captures this week as well. He's the one that subjected himself to dealing with this, and it is so fun to see. But all of these characters running around, it is pushing a lot of polygons. There's 22 players on field at any given time, well, at least for real football. I'm not sure of the count on NFL Blitz, but you can see here, it just works. Of course it's going to look a little bit mangled on screen, but that's the fun of this current core, seeing how the Nintendo 64 handles different elements and seeing what can run without actual silicon coded in. The RDP chip, as far as the FPGA code, is not done whatsoever, but you can still get games playing today, which is wild to see how little it takes for these games to actually boot and play. Something like the Star Fox 64 introductory sequence here, you can tell that is a spaceship even if it's graphically corrupted, and the texture for the Star Fox logo is 100% readable. Now obviously this doesn't look like it would if you played on original Nintendo 64 hardware, but it is getting there, and the fact that we can actually get in game and play Star Fox 64 in and of itself is an absolute accomplishment. You see recognizable things in the introductory sequence. Now when we actually get into game, you'll see a lot of the 2D assets, like the characters there, are going to load in perfectly fine, but the ships are going to have no textures on them whatsoever, and basically the level kind of shows up and kind of doesn't. It is drawing what it can based upon the FPGA code that is in the current core, and basically leaving everything off screen that it can't draw because that code is not incorporated yet into the work in progress core. But you can shoot ships, you can blow things up, you can navigate around the level, and you can play the game, and that is just so wild to see. This was considered to be the impossible core, and then we basically had one single demo showing some signs of life, a hello world moment, and now you can play like maybe a quarter of the Nintendo 64 library, looking like this of course, but still functioning. And I will say the sound quality so far has been exceptional as well. It is not perfect, but it is close. Go ahead and listen to Star Fox for like 35 seconds, I'll come back and show you a bunch more games on the current core that just work.
Everybody stay alert!
I mean, that basically just sounds like Star Fox to me, but leave me a comment down below and tell me how you think it sounds, because I'm still recovering from that cold. I'm like 95% better, but my ears are still a little clogged, so it is a little bit muffled to my ear. But just to be able to actually do this is wild. You wouldn't expect things to run this well, but sometimes you see things you've never seen before, like Destruction Derby here. The title screen is going to quad up all of the graphics. You're going to see everything happening at 4 times what it normally would be, including the menu. But when you actually get into the game, it is going to start drawing 2D elements and some 3D elements as well, but it's as interesting to see what isn't here as it is to see what is included in the current core. The cars are all there, they are made of polygons, but none of the texturing is on them whatsoever, where the road in and of itself is going to appear. All of the buildings to the side are there, but they just don't have any textures on them, so they must be using a different mode as far as what the Nintendo 64's hardware could do when it was actually trying to draw images. Of course, it's not currently running at full speed, but it's running faster than it was before because Robert has done some improvements in the code, and we're getting closer to real-time full speed on certain games. But it's just wild to see all of this in action at the same time. You can see explosions, you can see vehicles, you can see the roadworks, you can see things that we were never able to see before, even like 10 days ago. That's the speed at which Robert actually iterates on this core. Sometimes he takes a week off, sometimes he releases 2 cores in the same day that have small improvements. You're never quite sure what he's up to, but it's always exciting. Now take a look at something like Earthworm Jim, a game I showed on the previous testing video, and while the graphics aren't improved that much, we do get that perspective correctness on the textures, and we're able to get a lot further into the game with some improvements. It used to be that when you went up the stairs here, at least on my testing in the last video, it would freeze basically right here. We can now get around the corner and go further into the game. They are small iterative changes, but they are so fun to see. And like I said, if you take a look at the textures in the background, all of the perspective is correct on them, and that is so important because that's something that the Nintendo 64 was well known to be able to do, where something like the PlayStation 1 would have those warping textures. You might still see a little wiggle here and there, but otherwise it is working and it does look good. And you see Peter Puppy here. Once you get to this area, nothing really happens, but it is a lot further into the game. Now, you guys did request I test a lot of stuff, and everyone wanted to know about Majora's Mask, and you can see a title screen and some really strange things. You get the Zelda logo there, then you go to a purple input screen. Never seen this before in game. You'll never see it again unless you use this Nintendo 64 work in progress core. But it will start trying to draw something onto this screen. It is basically drawing at like 1 frame every couple seconds, but it is just wild and fun to see what is possible even if it looks completely mangled. Or something like Dr. Mario, one of my favorite examples, you're not going to get any backgrounds whatsoever, but you do get the pills and they look exactly as you would expect. It's so fun just to see what is possible even if it's not working correctly. It is very endearing just to see these pills pop around on the screen. It's another one of those classic Nintendo 64 games. But let's move back over to Super Mario 64, obviously the most well-known game, and these trees now look a lot more like trees. Sure, they've got that green triangle around them, but even something like Goomba over here, as he turns around, his eyes are there. They never used to be there before, but the big takeaway on an example like this is all of those textures having that correctness in the perspective. And I will say the sound on Super Mario 64 is near to perfect as well. Go ahead and listen for like 35 seconds, including Mario snoring, because I got a lot more games to show you, but I'll be right back. Maybe there's a little more reverb in that music than I remember, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. And I do like when you can't actually see the ground in the background. The perspective gets so weird that it seems like Mario became a gigantic monster in comparison to the rest of the scale of the level. It's a Super Mario 64 I've never seen before, and a lot of people have been seeing how far they can get into the game and how many stars they can collect. And I do hope that this is completable before the core gets too good, because we've talked about some Super Mario 64 speedruns where you can't see anything. Now, a big takeaway here here is look at the lines on the side of the road. They are now whole lines. It used to be that they broke up a lot more, but you'll see here they're a lot more connected. And in Nintendo 64 software emulation, for a while, this Jumbotron screen didn't work, but you'll see here, not only is it working, but it replicates the black box we're racing as. It's a little observation, but it is fun to see that it's drawing it correctly, because that was one of the first tests that everyone would look at with Nintendo 64 emulation. You can complete a race, you can get into a new race, and you could even see the credit sequence when you complete a race. And it is funny just running around as these black boxes, but even since the last time I showed this to you, a lot more does work. It used to be that I would get freezing into the second race, but Andy D did this capture for me and he was able to get into the second course and it worked totally fine. There's not a lot to see here, there is no ground, but it is Mario Kart and it is indicative of how this core is coming along. Robert just works so fast, he's been busting these cores out and so many updates. It's quite possible by tomorrow or even later this evening there might be a new core out that makes some of these games look even better. You can see other courses in this game, but it will on occasion hang up depending on what it must be trying to draw to the screen. It causes a freeze state. You'll still get some audio, but that's about as far as you get. Now another game that has improved dramatically is Wave Race, and I love that you can see the polygon mesh underneath the water. That's not something you would usually ever see in the intro, but it kind of shows you the underlying way that the Nintendo 64 would work. You can see the Wave Race 64 logo, you can see the jet skis, and you can see the water mesh underneath it. And it's fun just to see how things were made. It does end up freezing a lot here, but that's just kind of what we're currently seeing. We'll reset it and see what happens. But it's so much fun. It's something you'd never actually notice in-game because Nintendo obviously hid that underneath stuff. But you can see the water rendering in real time in 3D on the current core. You just can't really get into a game and do much whatsoever. Now another game that does show you some graphics and people have asked about and a lot of people have talked about it being one of the games that does work is Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey and 3D Hockey 98. It's kind of funny it wasn't 97 and 98, they just started giving it years after the first release, but you will see it go into the introductory sequence of the game and it does end up looking like a hockey rink, so you can actually tell what it is that you're looking at and a lot of the players are there. Unfortunately, this is about as far as it goes. Now some games just look absolutely wild. This is 40 Winks here and you can see it executing code in 3D in real time, but it's a lot about what it's missing. Some things are in the background and you basically get these view portals. You can tell something is drawing, but you're not quite sure what it is. Obviously that's a person waking up in a bed and it's kind of just fun to see these in silhouette, what works and what doesn't work. And 40 Winks is a ton of fun and I can't wait to play it on the Nintendo 64 core, but there's so many different visual modes the Nintendo 64 works with, and you'll see here again, we're seeing that screen space replication like we saw previously, where there would be 2 or 4 screens at once. It must just be using a different draw mode, and it's one of those things that's so much fun to look at even if you really can't tell what's going on. You can tell it's a bedroom, you can tell that's a lamp, but otherwise it is so confusing. But I think my favorite sound example of this video is going to be Pokemon Puzzle, the introductory FMV sequence. So go ahead and watch and I'll be right back because I got even more games to show you.
Hi, Professor Oak.
Hello, Ash. I have an important message for you. They are starting an official Puzzle League tournament, and you are selected as one of the challengers.
I'll go sign up.
I'm so proud of you, Ash. Being selected for this event is such an honor. Well, there's no time to explain everything. You must hurry.
Well, let's go.
Wait! Don't forget to come and see me in my office in Puzzle League Village!
Yeah.
Did you hear me, Ash?
Eager to prove themselves in this new type of Pokemon battle, Ash and Pikachu race to Pokemon Puzzle League Village.
There it is, Pikachu. Are you ready for another new challenge? Pikachu!
I mean, sure, there's a little bit of visual artifacting there, but that just sounds exactly as I remember. But there's so many different games to try, and a lot of you wanted to see Turok, and I love what it shows you and what it doesn't show you. It's basically like it's cel-shaded, but it's cel-shaded in silhouette. You can tell that's Turok right there pulling his bow back on screen, and you're going to see the Turok logo. You just don't have any lighting on it, and you have no textures on it. When you actually get into the game, it is just such a trippy visual. You can tell where you are in the intro. You can tell there's an enemy in the background. You can see those bats fly by, but trying to understand anything that's going on is near to impossible, but it is quite a look. You can access the map screen, you can look up and down, you have free range of motion, you just don't have much visual on the screen, but it's such a dramatic and interesting look, and it's a great visual example to show you what the core looks like in its current state on some games. Some things like Super Mario 64 are going to give you all of those textures, and it's going to look exactly as you remember it, just with some issues. Something like Turok here is going to look like nothing you've ever seen before, but you can see you can move around in game, you can collect items, and you can fall into the water, which must be a complete pain to get out of when the screen is blue. But it's just so interesting to see this look, and it's not just this game as well. If we move over to Tonic Treble, you're going to see a very similar look here. You can see something, it's in 3D, you have the ability to navigate around, but you have absolutely no textures or any sort of visual outside of that background skybox. If you have something against the skybox, you can see it. If it's not against the skybox, it is just straight black. Something like Bomberman Hero, though, does show some visuals, and in my opinion, it is my favorite game on the Nintendo 64, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite is. You can see Bomberman, but that's about all you can see. Now, a game that shows a lot more visuals and is a lot worse than Bomberman Hero is going to be Clay Fighter 63 1/3. It is not my favorite game whatsoever, but you can see all the sprites drawing on the screen. You just get absolutely nothing in the background outside of a couple of blocky sort of textures with a little bit of lighting and color on them, and you will see that the controls seem to be transposed across different characters. But it is an example of sprites rendering in real time, and the audio on this one does sound great as well. It's not my favorite game, but it's a great audio example. I'm only going to give you 20 seconds of this because I still got even more games to show you, but enjoy the music because you probably can't enjoy Clay Fighter 63 1/3.
Earthworm Jim!
Great music, and it's fun to see Earthworm Jim get into the mix, but Fighter's Destiny here, again drawing polygons, but not much else, and we're going to kind of go through some games quickly here to show you what's going on. Killer Instinct is going to draw that Rareware logo, and it's going to show the presented screen, but it loves to freeze here. But if you do mash start, you can get into the character selection screen, and you can play the game while seeing nothing. Something like Micro Machines is going to show a lot of 3D here. You get the logo flying in. Again, not my favorite game on the Nintendo 64, but it does show signs of life. Of course, there's some textures missing here, but all of the textures have that perspective correctness to them, and you can kind of navigate around just a little bit, but it's so much fun just again to see this on screen. But my next example is probably the favorite in the video because a lot of people asked if it was working, and it is, just in ways that you could never possibly imagine, and that is going to be Mortal Kombat. You will see here, you can see characters, but there is no stage, but those little view portals in the back allow you to play the game in silhouette. You've never seen it look like this before, and that is because it was never supposed to look like this before, but you can pull off moves, you can fight your opponent, you can see the life bar at the top. This is just complete Bizarro World Nintendo 64, but it's so much fun to see just as a development process is concerned, because of course when this core is done, it's going to look like you would expect it to look, but right now this is just a visual I've never once seen in my life, and I get as excited of seeing things that are completely broken as I do seeing things that 100% just work. Sometimes the development process is as fun, if not more fun, than the actual finished project in my opinion, but tell me down below what you'd like to see and how you like to see it. Now moving on to a game that just shows complete craziness is going to be Nagano Winter Olympics. You can see the textures for the side of the ski course here, you can see some of the textures of that snow flying up into the air, but otherwise it's just showing the trippiest visual I have ever seen, but I love seeing something like this on screen. You'll see the title bump card there looks exactly as you would expect, and when you get into an actual competition, you can see sprites for the trees on the side of the course, but that's all you see. It's basically like you're skiing in pitch darkness, and all you get is some trees on the side. Compare that to something like Nuclear Strike here, where you can see the entire ground, everything is in polygons, but the trees have no textures, and the helicopters have no textures, and that's kind of the takeaway from this current core. Some things are just going to be completely missing their textures, and that's just down to what's included and what's not included in the FPGA code for the current core. But it's so much fun just to see all of this move around. It is tripping. You can definitely tell that's a satellite array there, even if you don't don't see anything else. Or Unagi monsters here. The intro works, it likes to freeze, but you can see all of these different characters and all of their polygons moving around and doing something. Even this introductory sequence right here, most of it is working until it freezes. So that's kind of the takeaway of this core. It works until it doesn't, but we love to see that. A lot of people ask for Paper Mario. You can see the title screen right here, but once you actually get into the menu selection, it just does crazy things. These are menus navigating in real time. You just don't know what's happening, but it is getting closer. Or something like Road Rash here, you can see the world, you can see the motorcycle, but it is just basically blue, black, and white. And that's just what the core is going to do for some games. For every Super Mario 64 that has full textures and things you can see, there's going to be a Road Rash where you can't see anything whatsoever, but it is fun to do it all the same. That's my takeaway for all of these videos. It's so much fun to test just to see how things work. And good news, bad news is Superman 64 does work on the current core. You can see the title screen here, you can see all of the menu options, but when you actually get into the game, all you're going to see is the following. It is quite weird. All it is are these red blocks, which probably means it's more fun than actually playing Superman 64 on real hardware. That is a joke. If it's your favorite game, I'm happy for you. I just don't love it, nor does anybody else. But that's the current situation with the Nintendo 64 as of the recording of this video. It's quite possible 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours from now, Robert's going to upload a new core that's going to do something completely different, and I will update these videos over time, but I do wait for big visual changes to show you guys something new. If it's just a small change or an iterative change, I usually don't make a video. But leave me a comment down below, tell me how your weekend's going, tell me what you thought of the video, tell me what games you want me to see, test next, but I'll be back with more MiSTer content next week, and I'll have video the rest of the week, but happy Sunday, bye bye.